Okay, so we've got, well, it's my favourite Sangha night evening, which is 3 short talks from Sangha members tonight, so real treat. So I'll just kind of orient where we are. So we're in our theme on the Wheel of Life, the Tibetan Wheel of Life. The theme's called The Great Escape, and we've had, do you need a bit more volume at the back? A little bit more volume. So yeah, we're in a theme on the Tibetan Wheel of Life called The Great Escape, and we've heard in previous weeks, we've heard about karma. We've heard about this circle here where people are going up and down from painful mental states into more positive mental states through the law of karma, and we've heard about the different realms that people can be in because of karmic action. It can be seen traditionally as rebirth into these 6 different realms, these realms here, or actually just states of mind that we can be in moment to moment. So Sangha Gita talked last week about 3 of these realms, which were the Asura realm, which is the realm of the Titans, or I think sometimes called anti-gods, very aggressive realm, and the realm of the hungry ghost, which is the tormented beings with tiny mouths and big bellies that can never be satisfied, and also spoke about the hell realm. So that's what Sangha Gita talked about last week. So this week, we've got 3 people speaking about their personal experience, either their personal experience of being in that realm or being in environments where that realm has been dominant, and the things that have helped them to get out of that realm. So we've got Dayaloka first, speaking about the Titan realm, the Asura realm. Then we've got Anantakirti speaking about the hungry ghost realm. And then we've got Dayasingha speaking about the hell realm. Oh yeah, and Andre is waving. Where? Yeah, have you got something to wave? Just a hand will do it. Yeah, big massive purple flower. That'll do it. So we've got 8 to 10 minutes for each talk. So first up is Dayaloka to speak about the Titan realm.
Okay, right, start again. Can you hear me at the back? Great. Is it working, Melissa? Great, thanks. So for Sanghavachta, the Asuras inhabit this aggressive, competitive state of mind. They're externally, they appear restless, suspicious, and jealous. And it's in this realm that Asuras strive for endless material wealth. Yeah. But it's not the God realm, it's a realm of suspicion and jealousy. So with Sanghavachta's description in mind, I've been asked to give a personal talk on my experiences of this realm. Yeah, so here goes. So I've encountered the Asuras in numerous ways. Many of us will. These are archetypal realms. We're not inhabiting them fully in our beings, but they're archetypal realms which we may have a taste of or quite a strong experience of. And 3 in particular stand out. So firstly, I studied politics. I did a master's in politics. I did a PhD in politics. And politics is many things, but one thing it is a study and exercise of power. But like many politics students, I thought this was for the good. You know, I wanted to achieve social justice, world peace, that sort of thing. Secondly, as an academic, I was probably jostling for position and status, chasing research funding for myself and others. Again, a bit of an Ashura realm, quite competitive. And I've had management jobs in a university, working to, you know, develop and implement things on behalf of an organization. And through work, I've encountered people who I think were more fully inhabiting those realms, the realm of the Titans and the Asuras. And I have probably at least three responses to this. Not entirely wholesome and ethical, but, you know, initially there would have been some intoxication, being in awe of the power of them. But also a fear and anxiety. You know, I was scared of these people. They had a sort of potentially wrathful side to them. But there was also a kindness and compassion. They were like me. They were suffering. And at the start of my career, many, many years ago, a long time ago, a friend and colleague likened kind of the functioning of the university to a medieval court. Courtesans, knights, and others jostling for position to seek favor, power, and status. It's an interesting metaphor. And it's probably got a grain of truth in it, but like a lot of stories, it is one which is mind-created. Most people I've worked with were interested in education, in knowledge. Probably also just what would they want to have for dinner that night. So the Ashura realm is an archetype. Yeah, it's an archetype, an extreme of a mental state. And this is true of myself. I was motivated by curiosity, social justice, as I said before, you know, and also what I might have for dinner. But when I encountered the power of the Ashura realm, it affected my mental states, and that's really what I want to reflect on the rest of the talk. You know, I've been quite successful at securing funding, and I'd quite like to think that was due to the virtuous qualities of my research. But there was also a very competitive inner me who enjoyed winning that funding and the praise which I got and followed from that. This working context impacted on me, and I could really sense an impact on my mental states. I'd be anxious, worry about things at work, wake up being anxious. And I'd create and feed stories in my mind. Perhaps some of the ones were like the medieval court. And at the same time, I was sort of feeling an aversion to these mental states, you know, and of course, what would I do? Try and distract myself, crave pleasure, and escape from those. But then I started to meditate. And the more I meditated in mindfulness of breathing and metta bhavana, including some of the Asuras in some of those stages, often the fourth, but not always, different things began to happen, often slowly and sometimes painfully. So I was aware of what my internal Asura Titan realm was doing to my mind, but also to my body. I was feeling tense. I was feeling anxious. I became more aware of others, their suffering, that many were probably suffering too. In fact, probably they were all suffering. I saw and felt the karmic consequences of skillful and unskillful actions, especially in speech. Even the most subtle things I become much more aware of as I reflected on these and turned these in my meditation. And work in the Asura realm began to be, as I worked with this more and more, the Asura realm, that realm of power, of competitivity, began to move from the center of my mandala, of my life. The Dharma became more important. The effect of the Dharma, the positivity of the Dharma became more important and more central. The harsh masks, armor, and weapons of the Asuras, as Sangha to describe them, were a place with greater kindness. Practice, and especially meditation, began to change my mind-created world. But there's still suffering. In a way, as those defenses were removed, uncovered, those veils brought down, feelings became more intense. The feeling of pain became more intense. But it was also much clearer as their root causes. And what was clearer for me to see, that as these thought patterns these were just thought patterns arising and falling away. There are still stories, indeed, of medieval courts and probably of competition, but they have a weaker hold. And with that, there feels a sort of greater space for liberation from suffering. And I want to finish, if I may, just with a few words, just with the lines from the Dhammapada, which I think really, and of course, sort of summarize this all far more eloquently than I could. So it's the first, as many of you will be familiar with. Those who entertain such thoughts as he abused me, he beat me, he conquered me, he robbed me, will not still their hatred. Those who do not entertain such thoughts as he abused me, he beat me, he conquered me, he robbed me, will still their hatred. Not by hatred are hatreds ever pacified here. They are pacified by love. This is the eternal law.
Yeah, is that okay? Can you hear me at the back? Yeah, great. Hi, everyone. Let's get my paper ready. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the realm of the hungry ghosts. And I've just really enjoyed and benefited from reflecting on it. And I was just thinking, if somebody asks you to do a talk, do say yes. It's just a really, it's just such a good opportunity to reflect on things in a way that I wouldn't do normally. So thank you for asking. Just a reminder of the realm of the hungry ghosts. So these are the disturbing figures here on the sort of bottom right segment, with their saucer eyes, tiny mouths, big tummies that can never be satiated, consumed with hunger. And any food that they consume burns their mouth and their throats and turns to nails in their belly. So this is the realm of neurotic craving and addiction. So I have, there's a little ladybug on my sheet. I'm going to talk about my personal experiences of being in the hungry ghosts realm and a little bit about how I've got out of that. And I was reflecting on it. I've had a lot of addictions. So I'm going to list them for you. Food, also dieting, also exercise, alcohol, cigarettes, sex, relationships, avoidance of relationships, busyness, apathy, social media, my phone. I am an addictive personality. Not drugs so much, but I did try. They just didn't agree with me. Yeah, thank goodness. And my body said no. And when I was reflecting on all these different addictions that I've had through my life, what came through really strongly, and it feels really important to sort of reflect, is that it wasn't about pleasure. It was, what I wrote was, I didn't want pleasure, I wanted obliteration. It was about escape, filling a void, avoidance, chaos. And I was thinking about the ghosts, and something occurred to me that, they're really insubstantial. They're not alive. And yeah, that's how it feels in that realm. And all of those addictions have caused me and others harm, and I'm grateful to not be in any of them today, or maybe the phone a bit. But so one thing I wanted to say at this point was is that I have needed outside help with some of my addictions, and it's good to reflect on that. You know, and talk to someone about that if you think maybe you need outside help. I definitely needed outside help. And one of the things that I remember asking, and I asked then, and I continue to ask now when I get habits, is this getting me closer or further away from what I want? And I remember I've been really lucky. I've pretty much kept a journal consistently, even through my chaotic years. And there was a really significant diary entry that I wrote in my mid-20s at the height of my drinking, and I wrote, when I drink, I'm desperate to connect and feel intimacy. That's why I'm drinking. I look forward to drinks. I want to connect with my friends. And when I drink, I turn into an idiot, and I cause disconnection. And then I wake up and I forget what's happened, and I feel more disconnected. And it took me a while to stop drinking after that. But it was a significant awareness of, this is taking me further away from what I really want. And again, another good question to ask is, am I consistently going against my values or causing myself or other people harm? Which I was. And one of the things in my reflections as well that also feels really important and has been continues to be really important to me to reflect on is what lies underneath that craving. So the craving, the addiction is a lie. You know, when it tells us that drink will solve your problems, that cake will solve your problems, that's a lie. That's not true. And we play that out over and over again. But the yearning, the wanting something, the kind of discomfort, knowing that there's some need that's not getting met, that often is worth paying attention to. What do I really need or want? You know, what's in the gap actually before I pick up whatever it is my brain is telling me to pick up. So yeah, I wanted to reflect on what has helped me get out of that realm and stay out broadly. And I've been sober for 15 years, and I'm, you know, really, really proud of that. I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, so the first thing that came up was this awareness. Is awareness, you know, the first step is awareness. Again, what do I really want? But what is the real effect that's happening? Noticing those little harms that are causing myself and other people, however small, noticing them really makes a difference. And in this realm, the Buddha, the antidote that the Buddha offers is nourishing food. So the Buddha is offering us what we really want, what we really need. And I love that word nourish. So what is really going to nourish us? And I really had to ask myself, what do I need? What do I need to nourish myself? And on all levels, really. And when I looked, I needed to learn how to look after myself, actually, on a physical level, an emotional level, a spiritual level, a practical level. I needed to learn how to connect with other people properly, sober. I needed learn how to connect deeply with myself, and a lot of outside help helped with that. I needed to do the washing up. I needed to look after my finances. And one of the really lovely things I needed to find out what actually does give me pleasure. And one of the things that I really learned, well, many things I learned that I enjoyed that I didn't realize. I really love bird watching. You know, I would never, past me would have laughed at that. But, you know, really learning that stillness and contentment. And bird watching isn't the answer to everything, but there is something about, although for me maybe it is, but, you know, it's about really learning about, stillness and contentment, and learning about these things that we genuinely enjoy is really important. Also gratitude. I cannot talk enough about how important gratitude lists are and have been to me. I've kept them pretty consistently for about 10 years, but I really think it's a really good practice of countering that feeling of scarcity. I had another flash that came up to me when I was reflecting on this talk, was when I was in the sort of I don't know, den of iniquity of my life in my 20s. One of the things when I got back from work that I really enjoyed doing was I'd run a bath, pour a glass of gin and light a fag. And that was just the peak of my day. And I just thought life doesn't get better than this. And it does. And a few years after I got home and I ran a bath and I had this really beautiful big Lush bath bomb. I've also learned that I love Lush. And poured myself a beautiful herbal tea, put on an audiobook, and I was like, oh, this is real pleasure. This is nourishing myself. Thank you. And yeah, living ethically, you know, being a lot of what I was avoiding was, you know, when I was trying to escape with those things was discomfort. And a lot of discomfort came from not living ethically, actually. So, you know, I really love the Karina Metta Sutta with being a capable, upright person. That was a really important antidote to the hungry ghosts for me and continues to be. But finally, I wanted to end with the ultimate answer. And what I ultimately believe is the antidote, that the problem is spiritual and the antidote is spiritual. So that void that is in all of us can only really be filled by the spiritual, in my opinion. And what came up was commitment, actually. Like a lot of what I was doing before in all of that avoidance and chaos was a lack of commitment to myself, to the other people in my life and my potential. And actually, a big antidote now is the commitment to myself and to the path. You know, having a greater purpose, growing into a wiser, kinder version of myself through practice. And that is what gives that sustainable contentment that I don't need to kind of escape through other means. Thank you.
Can you all see me? No, I mean hear me. Public speaking, it's hell. It's hell. So thanks a lot, Paranita. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to talk to us about the hell realms, my personal experience of hell realms. But let's start by remembering that all of these teachings are for our benefit. Okay. They're there to help us and all other beings reach a state of perfect peace and well-being. And the teaching actually that's symbolized by the wheel is actually a symbol of hope, showing us a way off. There is a way off, there is a way out. The great escape from our suffering, an ever-present danger of remaining trapped in the rounds of re-becoming doomed by our own thoughts and actions to keep making the same old mistakes again and again and again. So knowing how to escape is one thing, but evading the many traps is another. And I want to talk about one trap in particular. There are many, but I'm talking about one and maybe how we'll avoid that, really, how to avoid getting yourself into the hell realm. So when I was asked to give this talk, I did wonder whether I'd really got any experience of hell realms, at least psychologically speaking. But hell realms, they can be thought of or described as physically real places, as well as psychological realms or levels of consciousness or ways of being conscious. So I'm going to look at those two like that, sort of physically real places and psychologically. So real hell realms, and we're probably aware of a few, can include war zones. I've no experience of these, but I do have experience of what leads to these, to conflict and suffering. And perhaps we all do. A bit more on that later. But I do work in prisons as a Buddhist chaplain. And these are not the sort of places that the Daily Mail would have you think they are. They're not holiday camps, not very pleasant places at all. If I was to go into all the reasons, if I started to tell you the reasons why I believe these places to be hell realms and the people that in them reckon that they're hell realms in any kind of great detail, I'm pretty sure I'd traumatize some of you. And I don't want to do that. It affects me quite badly, and I don't want to do that to you. Suffice to say that I've seen human beings in some very, very low states indeed, naked, covered in their own filth, unable to stand up, unable to recognize me, even though I've been talking to them about poetry just the week before. Self-harm is a euphemism for self-mutilation, deaths in custody, that sort of thing. Some time ago, I visited the jungle camp at Calais, quite a few years ago now. Again, another realm, not so pleasant as you can imagine. People living in really, really hard conditions. I remember seeing unaccompanied children, a dead body, an aid truck turning up, and people just cramming dry cornflakes into their mouth, trying to, stave off their hunger. So I do have experience of these sort of real places. But this is something that I tell the guys in prison. I tell the guys in prison, we can always make these places worse. It's the prison within the prison. There's the concrete prison and there's the prison of your mind. The mind that doesn't accept, the mind that blames, all those sorts of things. It can make the prison worse. It can turn it into hell. The buildings themselves are not hell. They are just buildings. It's the occupants and it's the mind state, the mental states of the people there that make them hell realms. I don't feel the heat of flames. I haven't got Mara trying to sort of drag me off, or Lucifer trying to drag me off when I'm walking around these places, but there is definite suffering there. Okay, so we can make them worse, but how do we make them better? How do we make them better? Well, I found that one thing that works is giving the people in these places an incentive to do something for others, a chance to inspire others. That person that I was on about earlier on, covered in his own filth, Steve, one of the ways I managed to communicate with him was to sort of say, look, you can be an inspiration to others. You can get yourself up and out of this. You can inspire others. And that immediately switches a light on, and they go for it. It is something about human nature, actually, that when a human being is really, really down, they will still try to help somebody else. It's a fantastic and beautiful thing. Giving what they can. They will give what they can, even in a prison or in Calais, places like that. Generosity is listed as the first of what we call the perfections, as well as the second of our 5 precepts that we follow. And for the prisoners and people in these realms, it can be the seed of a strong Dharma practice, a glimpse of the way out. In fact, when you're really down in hell, it said that there's no other way to go. The only way to go is up. So in a way, your chances of discovering the Dharma and going for enlightenment are really sort of supercharged. In the depths of suffering, the way out may be suddenly realized and grasped. So our practice of the Dharma can begin to transform us, our attitude, and therefore the world around us. So from this, I think we can see that a hell realm is more of a description of a psychological state. Thought actions that are unwholesome lead to unwholesome states, and the opposite is true. Severe illness can be a cause of immense suffering, but it doesn't necessarily lead to unskillful mental states or intentionally unskillful actions of body, speech, and mind. In fact, some people have intense spiritual experiences at such times, but don't go making yourself ill. So Bante's description of the beings that inhabit these realms. He says, the world of the tormented beings is the state of acute mental sufferings, nervous frustration, mental breakdown, even insanity. I think we can see from the first 2 talks that there are shades of the hell realm in those 2 talks as well. I think, in other words, he's saying that we may be affected so badly mentally that we just can't practice or even hear the Dharma. Have any of us experience of that? Well, we probably have, and we can find ourselves in those states for lots of reasons. Grief could be one, addiction could be one. But I'm just going to pick on one particular way that we can find ourselves trapped like that. And this is hatred. Hatred can destroy so much, including all of our good practice, and lead to wars and conflict, prison and camps like those at Calais. So I just want to give a little story. A Zen master, a monk called Hakuin, was meditating one day, and he'd just finished his meditation, and one of his disciples came and told him that there was somebody that wanted to see him. And it wasn't just any old person, it was a samurai warrior. Hakuin, being as he was a bit of a grumpy old so-and-so and an enlightened master, thought, well, okay, and he kept the samurai waiting, which sort of wound the samurai up a little bit. And then when he did go and meet him, he was pretty rude to him as well. And in the course of his interactions with the samurai drew his sword. It asked the samurai, what's your question? And the samurai said, I want to know what hell is, or if it exists, and I want to know whether paradise exists and what paradise is. So he began to draw his sword, and Hakuin said, that is the gates of hell opening. And he put it away, and he said, that is the gates of paradise opening. Hatred comes from frustrated craving. We crave for things to be a certain way, and if things threaten this, it can turn into hatred. Whatever frustrates our craving, it can turn into hatred. We have to be constantly vigilant about this. I wrote a note to myself a couple of weeks ago before I went on retreat, and it said, know that you are not at peace and take responsibility for this. We have a choice, don't we? We do have a choice. I'm a practicing Buddhist. How can I not be at peace? Because I crave. I see the trouble of the worlds, and I know what the problem is. I can see what needs to be sorted out. It's that lot over there with their wrong views and opinions. They are so stupid. They can't see the truth. They're easily whipped up by their leaders. I hate them. I've lost. So long as I come at the problems I see with the world and others in this way, I'm not coming at the way that I train in. This is hell. This is the sword being drawn. My values as a Buddhist should be altogether higher. I'm practicing for the benefit of all beings. All beings. I recognize the danger that some groups represent, but I see an even greater danger represented by the wheel. We have to learn, and we can learn, to challenge wrong view from this higher perspective without hate or judgment. The greater danger is falling into the trap along with my enemy and staying on the wheel. It's not easy. The world, we can see, is divided, but we have to glue it back together with something beautiful, the Dharma. Peace and freedom is more than just the absence of war. We have to call forth all we can of love, of respect, and of faith. Remove our obstructing defilements, clear away our taints. It is for heroic spirits intended. So I'm just going to finish on a very little thing, because I'm out of time, from Sangha from Bhante, a little bit of his talk of why I'm a Buddhist. I believe that humanity is basically one. I believe it is possible for any human being to communicate with any other human being, to feel for any other human being, to be friends with any other human being. This is what I truly and deeply believe. This belief is part of my own experience. It is part of my own life. It is part of me. I cannot live without this belief, and I would rather die than give it up. That sounds like a good way of avoiding hell to me. Thank you.